Hello, I welcome you all to this lesson. This is a translocation in plants. This is something that I want us to look at. So even as we discuss through this important topic, if you are to find a question in an exam, they are just telling you to say that what is translocation? You just find the question that what is translocation? They haven't indicated that it is translocation in plants, translocation in animals, just the word translocation. The word translocation, this word just refers to, so I want you to understand that this one just refers to the movement. We just talk about the what refers to the movement. We just talk about the movement of substance. So it just refers to the movement of substances within an organism. Within an organism. This is what you are supposed to understand. So when we are talking about translocation, we are talking about the movement of substances. So this is just the movement of substances within an organism. But in plants, since we are talking about translocation in plants, so let me say in plants now, how do we define translocation in plants? In plants, we just get to say that this is the what? This is the movement. We are just talking about the movement of manufactured food. So this is the movement of manufactured food from where? From the source. We say from the source up to the what? Up to the. So I will say this is the movement of manufactured food from the source to the what? From the source to the. So from the source to the site, I would say to the site of usage. So this is a site of usage. I would say to the site of usage or storage. This is what we mean by translocation in plants. So if I tell you what is translocation in plants, you need to tell me, okay, translocation in plants, we are just talking about the movement of manufactured food from the source. This is the origin or a place where the food is being manufactured from, to the site of usage or storage. So translocation, we are talking about the movement. So you discover that this thing here is happening through what we get to say through phloem. So through what? Through the phloem. So through the phloem. Why have we talked about the phloem? You discover that the sugars that are being produced during photosynthesis are transported from the leaves to other parts of the plant via this same thing called the phloem. You know and understand that the phloem is in charge of transporting the manufactured food from the leaves to the what? To the parts of a plant. This is the reason why we need to understand that how does translocation occur? How, maybe if you've got a question, how does it occur? How does it occur? So how does it occur? You've got this question. How does translocation occur in plants? So what you need to understand, I guess we are moving together and you are able to write down these points. So for translocation to occur, we need to have a phloem. This is the one part that is so important. You discover that the sugars, I've told you that the sugars produced, those sugars are produced during what? During photosynthesis. This word here, this is photosynthesis. So I'm going to complete it here. It is photo what? Photosynthesis. are transported. Those ones are what? Those ones are transported from, we are saying that from where? From the leaves. They get to move from the leaves to the parts of the plant, to the what? To the parts of the plant. To the parts of the plant. This is what we need to understand. So you now discover that for this whole process to happen, there must be some form of, it depends on what we get to call active energy. So we are answering the question, how does translocation occurs? So translocation, which is the movement of substances, or we are saying the movement of manufactured food from the source where they are being made to a site where it's supposed to be used. So we are saying that when sugars are made on the leaves during the process called what? Photosynthesis. Those ones are transported from the leaves to the parts of the plant. And for this to happen, you discover that this process, so I'm explaining to say that this process involves what? This process involves what we get to call active transport. This process gets to involve what we call active transport. In active transport, you discover that energy is being used to move those sugars, nutrients against a concentration gradient. But since here we are talking about sugars, so it can be sugars, nutrients, or water. But in this is phloem, and we are talking about sugars. So we are saying that this process involves active transport. This active transport, what it does is that for active transport to be there, there must be some kind of energy that should be used. So we are saying that where energy, where energy, this is what we are saying, where energy is used, to move what? To move the sugars, to move the sugars. So this is what I'm saying. To move the what? To move the sugars. To move the sugars, that word there, that's sugars. So to move the what? To move the sugars. To move the sugars against a concentration gradient. So to move the what? The sugars against the what? Against a concentration gradient, because active transport goes against a what? A concentration gradient. For active transport to take place, there must be some sugars that should move with the help of energy against a concentration gradient. That is some things that we are talking about. If it is in phloem, this thing gets to happen through what? Phloem, but there is also some kind of translocation that gets to happen in xylem cells. I told you that xylem vessels, these are in charge of movement of water and minerals, which gets to be absorbed by the roots. They get to move from the roots or from the soil and up to the top of usage, where a plant needs those nutrients that get to be manufactured in the so they enter the roots. Have you seen? So all those things. So discover that water and minerals are absorbed by the roots from the soil and are transported upward via the xylem to the leaves. So they also get to move from the leaves, from the roots to the what? To the leaves. Via what? Xylem. So there is also some kind of translocation that you have to understand even on that part. So the kind of translocation that gets to occur, so this is what I'm explaining on xylem. Not only on phloem. On phloem we've said manufactured food. But when we go to a xylem, so when we go to a xylem, you get to understand that translocation, we get to define it as the movement of nutrients and water through the plant's vesicular system. This is also another definition that you need to understand. So another definition that you need to get under translocation in plants, we are saying that this is the what? This is the movement. We are talking about the movement of nutrients. The movement of what? The movement of nutrients and water. So the movement of nutrients and water, so let me label this, the movement of water and nutrients through what? Through what we get to call through the plants. Through the what? Through the plant's vesicular system. I told you what a vesicular system is. I explained vesicular bundles, all those things I explained to you. I guess you know them. Aside knowing this, I also looked at other things that you are supposed to know. So you must be able to explain these vesicular bundles that we did last time. You are supposed to know them. If I tell you, are you able to locate a cambium? Are you able to know that this is a phloem or this is a xylem? All those things are supposed to be known. So in xylem, you discover that the way a phloem gets to occur. So I've told you to say that water, the water and minerals, water and what? Water and minerals are what? Are absorbed. So these ones are absorbed by the what? By the roots. They get to be absorbed by the roots. From where? From the soil. From the soil. Once they are absorbed from the soil, they get to be transported. So, and I'll say, and transported. They are what? They are transported upward. They get to be transported upward via the what? Via the xylem to the leaves. To the what? To the leaves. This is also some kind of translocation that you need to understand. It is also translocation. So you get to understand this in so many ways and in different ways. So the same way I'm explaining this, this is how you need to understand it. Some questions in an exam will come, they will just tell you to say, explain how translocation occurs in xylem. Another question can also come, explain how this gets to occur in phloem. So you just need to understand it just like this. So I guess we are understanding this and we are also writing down certain notes. You can have a question where they are telling you to say, okay, give us an evidence to say that this is a translocation. So we are saying that evidence, this is what I'm saying, evidence. Evidence for what? Evidence for translocation. Evidence for translocation. Specifically, we are talking about what? We are talking about plants. So the evidence for translocation in plants. What are certain evidence that we need to know for translocation in plants? The first one that you need to understand, the first evidence is what we are calling what? Phloem tissue structure. Phloem tissue structure. This is something that you need to understand. So you now understand that these phloem tissue structures, they get to do what? They get to contain what we get to call some, they get to have what we get to call some sleeve, so sleeve tubes. They get to have, they include sleeve tubes and something I am calling a companion. So something I'm calling a what? A companion cell. So these phloem tissue structures, we get to include these two. We've got the sleeve tubes and the companion cells. So what they get to do is that these ones are specialized for transportation of what? Nutrients. So these ones are what they get to be. I'm going to say that they what? They are specialized. They are what? They are specialized is what I'm going to say. They are what? These ones are specialized for transportation of what? They are specialized for transportation of nutrients. So they are specialized for transportation of what? Transportation of nutrients. You discover that these sleeve tubes have a perforated, let me say they've got what we get to call a perforated ends O's in them, whereby they get to allow some efficient flows. So this is something that gets to prove that there is a translocation in plants. So the way these phloem tissue cells, tissue structures are, is that they get to contain these sleeve tubes and companion cells. These ones, they are specialized for transportation of what? Transportation of nutrients. So these nutrients, if they are moved, so if they move from one place to the other place, from one part to the other part, that movement is what we are calling what? Translocation. That movement is what we are calling translocation. So what I mean is that these sleeve tubes, so I'm saying that these sleeve tubes have perforated, they have perforated what? They have perforated end walls that gets to allow. So we are saying allowing what? Allowing for efficient, allowing for efficient flow. So this is what we are talking about. Also, another evidence that we are supposed to understand is what we get to call the use of fluorescent dyes. So also the use of these fluorescent dyes, you discover that once you get to apply these fluorescent dyes to leaves, so I'm saying that applying them, so this is what I'm saying. So we are saying that applying these fluorescent dyes, so applying fluorescent dyes, applying fluorescent dyes to leaves, when we are applying them to leaves, we get to like to leaves, shows that the dye, you discover that the dye will move through the what? Through the phloem. This is what you need to know. So discover that the dye is going to move through the what? Through the phloem. That is going to confirm that these ones get to be what? They get to be used as pathway for translocation. So phloem is being used as a pathway for what? Pathway for translocation, where some dyes are moving. So all these things, you are supposed to understand them clearly, even as you get to prepare for exams. So we've got quite of them, and we need to consider a lot of things. So another thing that I want you to understand, let me love this part. So another evidence that we need to understand is experiments with gathering. So gathering, you just discover that this is a technique that involves removing or damaging the bark of a tree or a branch in a ring shape, whereby you discover that all the way around the trunk or the branch. So what we get to mean now in this, to relate this to translocation, you discover that we are saying that gathering this word, we are talking about what? We are talking about, in simpler words, I'm talking about removing a what? Removing a strip of bark. This is what I mean. So by this process, you get to understand that because this is going to demonstrate that phloem is essential for translocation. So just this process, the removing of a strip of bark is gets to demonstrate. So we are saying that demonstrates that it gets to demonstrate that phloem, so I will say phloem is what? Is essential. It is essential for translocation. For translocation. You discover that in this one, so we are saying that in dewed plants, so plants, sugars. So I'm saying that sugars get to accumulate. So they get to accumulate the what? The above. You discover that when you cut that plant, so in those plants that are being cut, I've used this weight, in those plants that are being cut, above there you are going to find some sugars. So they discover that the sugars get to accumulate the cut. The cut part gets to accumulate the what? The above cut. The part that is cut, since they cannot move down the roots because it is cut, we've seen. So we are saying that above the cut, since they cannot move down, since they cannot move down, the roots. So all this is also an evidence that you need to understand. The last thing that I'm going to tell you, the last evidence is temperature and translocation. Temperature and what? Translocation. These things are interrelated. So temperature and translocation, you discover that translocation rates increases with temperature, supporting the idea that it is an active process which is requiring energy. This is something that is so simple. So what I'm telling you is that whenever we are talking about translocation, so we are saying that translocation rates gets to do what? Gets to increase. So we are saying increases with what? Increases with the temperature. These ones increases with the temperature. So they get to increase with temperature. Supporting what? So we are saying supporting the idea that it is what? Supporting the idea that it is an active process. I hope you've seen active transport. So it is an active what? Process which is requiring. So we are saying that it is requiring what? Requiring energy. It is requiring energy. So it is requiring energy. All these are some of the evidence. Another evidence that you can consider is what we call this one, broken phloem. This is also another evidence that you can consider. So we've got quite a lot of evidences that you need to understand, but these ones will really help you prepare even in an exam. So this is where we are going to end from in today's lesson. So this is where we end from. I guess you've understood one or two things. So I'll try to give you a simple exercise that I will want you to go through and try to answer one or two questions. Thank you so much.